Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Laura. She has her new book out today. So would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your new book?
Hi, I'm Laura, and my new book is Wednesday's Child, and it's a historical fiction book, but it's actually very loosely related and based upon my own grandmother's experiences. So it follows the life of Violet, who's a young girl born in the interwar period, and it shows her upbringing and the real harsh conditions of sort of the 1920s and 30s. She goes through some tragic events, and then when she's 14, she finally starts work and finds a bit of freedom, and for the first time ever finds friendship. So she's nursed through life basically with these two girls who become like sisters to her until the war is sort of on the horizon. And 1938, she's one of the first female recruits to join the new army, women's army section, the ATS. And because of that, she's actually one of the first women sent over to France to fight alongside the men, basically. So her, along with 400 other women, are over in France, going through the horrors that the men are going through, until eventually she's evacuated from the beaches of Dunkirk. So she's back home. She does find some love, which then takes her life in a different direction. So she goes from being a soldier on the front line to becoming a wife and a mother who has no clue what she's doing. And again, experiencing the sort of harsh conditions of life on the home front. So it looks at World War II, I suppose, from every direction and every angle possible, if that makes sense.
It does, but then I've read it, so. Did you always want to be a writer?
I sort of, yes and no. Growing up, yes, I always thought I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be an author, this is what I'm going to do. I was never a confident child. I was always the child at the back of the class, hiding from the teacher. And at that time, there was a lot of people, well, family members, oh no, you can't do that, you're no good at it, you don't want to do that, you have to go to university, push. So I ended up at university, ended up doing a job which was okay, and then my health really took a nosedive, and it's only sort of the last few years since having to give up work, well, I say last 10 years, that I've not been able to work, and now that I'm sort of starting to get a little bit back on my feet, that I've actually thought, I'm going to do this, and I've used it as a way of working through the bad days. So most of my books actually written from bed, high on painkillers and other sorts of medication, unable to move, just about able to move my fingers, but it's got me through. So for somebody to actually come along then and say, yeah, we really like your work, we want to publish it, it's like the biggest, most amazing thing that has ever happened in my life, if that makes sense. I mean, I've had 3 kids, but do you know what, this is like the pinnacle, to finally be told, actually, that one thing that you really wanted to do and was told you were no good at, actually, yeah, you're all right today, you're not too bad. So yeah, I'm really grateful to the publishers for actually picking the book up and saying, yeah, let's go with this, because it's got me through some really dark times.
And you said it was based loosely on your grandmother's story. So how did you find out about that?
Well, my grandparents were quite elderly when I was born. I was sort of like the youngest child of the family by many years. So when I was born, my grandmother was in the very early stages of Parkinson's disease. And along with that, my own parents, well, especially my mother, was suffering from very bad health. So I actually spent a lot of time growing up with my grandparents. And with my grandfather, who is Stephen in the book, because of events in the book, devoted his life to the Royal British Legion. He took a vow after the war and said, this is what I'm going to do. So growing up, my life was very much, I was taken around Royal British Legions. I was selling poppies from the age of about 6. Every year I'd be there on Remembrance Day, and spending so much time with my grandmother, and obviously with her Parkinson's, she began to actually open up and start telling not just her own stories, but my grandfather's as well, things that he'd never spoken about to anyone. So I was actually one of the first people in the family to actually hear these stories from my grandmother. And not just the stories, obviously she knew she was getting towards the end of her life. Began to part with photos, newspaper clippings. I've got her discharge papers from the army. So all of these little bits of evidence as well, she was starting to impart on me. And I'm really grateful because it's enabled me to tell her story.
And did you have to do much more research around her story to make it more genuine?
To be honest, what I have done, the most digging around was actually to do with the family side of things. Because I say the stories that she told, she was always very, she'd go into a lot of detail, and those bits were easy, but it was the family side, because I wanted it to be her story. It was more the family side, and like my grandmother died thinking that she'd been abandoned, nobody wanted her growing up. As you know from the book, she was passed around, she had no family. And it was only shortly after she died that we found out that she actually had 6 other aunts that were older than her, that they actually, it turns out they had a worse deal, but if they'd have known, they all said that they would have wanted to know her. So it's more that side of things. So it's brought me closer to my own family, because there's distant cousins that I've been able to get in touch with and swap stories about the family that my grandmother never actually knew anything about.
Well, that's amazing. And one of the parts of the book that stood out for me was Dunkirk, and that was heartbreaking. And quite detailed. So that's why I wondered about the research, because it felt so real.
I've always been a bit of a history buff. So a lot of that was my own knowledge. But yeah, again, it's going off stories that I was told, and from other people. So like being a child growing up within the British Legion, as it was, thanks to my grandfather, I was told I got to meet lots of older people who were there, and I was able to get lots of stories that you collect along the way, and there's just bits that you stand out, things that you just reflect on it sometimes and think, oh my God, did that really happen? So a lot of it, the other side of it was from other people's stories about what they experienced there.
Yeah, because I think it was about then I messaged you and said, I don't want to carry on in case anyone dies.
Yeah, I tried to make it, I wanted it to try and make it feel like you were there, but I didn't want to make it too gory and horrible, if that makes sense. So I was trying to find a balance somewhere along the line. So I'm glad that I managed to do that, so that people don't read it and think, oh my God, I don't want to read anymore, because it's like too much detail.
Yeah, no, you got it right. And it's very rare that I cry halfway between a book, but I did.
That's good. That's good for me.
Yeah. And I did carry on reading it, so it was fine. And then the other thing I want to ask is, obviously you've already told me, but the three women, the friends, have such great stories of their own. So I know you've written one.
I've just finished the other one. Yes, so Rachel and Ruth, the two sisters, well, they're not sisters, but sisterly figures. Yep, they both have their own very, very interesting stories, which I've just finished. Well, Rachel I'd written. Ruth was my favorite character, so I wanted to leave her till last. But Rachel's got a very colourful, very, very colourful story. And Ruth, it's, yeah, you get to see Ruth in a different light. You get to see the bits of time get filled in this one, and you sort of look at her and you think, oh my God, that's, you look at all of the characters in a different light. I think if you reread Wednesday's Child after reading the next two books, I think you'll read it completely differently.
Awesome. So do you know what you want to do next, if you've got ideas for more books?
I have. I've just finished a sort of 1920s mystery type book, which is with the publishers. And I have finished, it's more of a local, it's based in Wales. It's actually the story of my house. So it's based in one of the little mining valleys in South Wales before the mining boom and at the start. So, because there's lots and lots of books written about during the middle of the mining and things. So I wanted to take it further back. So that will be hopefully out hopefully within the next 12 months, that one will be out. But Rachel and Ruth are definitely my babies next. They're the ones that I really will be nurturing through.
Did you read a lot as a child, and what sort of thing did you read?
I did read a lot as a child, but it was more the classics. I enjoyed the classics and history books. I had a bizarre love of history books. So that's obviously probably helped me. As I've grown older, when I first became ill, I stopped reading altogether because I couldn't do it. I found I couldn't concentrate. So for years and years, I didn't pick up a book. And then I started the writing because my daughter, she's gymnast and cheerleader, but there's no books about that in the UK, and it was something we did together. So that's my very first published book. So we wrote that together, and then I just thought, do you know what, I'm going to do this. So I sort of went from reading nothing to really throwing myself into reading and writing again.
And do you want your kids to read your books when they're old enough?
When they're old enough, yes, because it's been quite nice for them. They've been on the journey with me, and they've learned a lot about the family. I'm from a very military family anyway, so both my parents were in the Navy, so the children have grown up So yeah, I think it'd be good for them. I think they'd enjoy. They have asked if they can read it, so hopefully they will, and get to know a few more of the family stories.
Yeah, there's that extra connection, which is really nice for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my nan wants me to write a book actually based on her story, so she keeps telling me I might have to start writing them down if she does.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. She was born in 1938, so she was just a child when the war was going on. But yeah, she likes telling me, which is awesome. I love listening. So yeah.
Yeah, you could got a lot to thank grandparents for when it comes to stories.
Yeah. Yeah, my granddad's 93, so he was just too young, I think, to be in the war, but he was still in the military and helped the effort after, I think, to clean up and clear bombs and stuff, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I only found that out in the last year. So, I've got much more to ask him.
Yeah, and ask before they go, because that was my biggest mistake, was writing this book, and I'm thinking, I wish I'd asked this. I wish I knew more.
Yeah. Would you consider writing any other genres, or is it always going to be historical for you?
Um, I have sort of started writing the story of my life, which is actually a lot harder than I expected it to be. So that's sort of a work in progress. But I just love historical. And I think it's actually easier to write because, back in time, you didn't have phones, you didn't have social media, you didn't have all these things that you have to contend with in a contemporary book. It's so much easier and cleaner to just be able to write, yeah, they wrote a letter, or rather than, yeah, they picked up their mobile and fired off a message on. It's so much easier. But I just love history anyway, so I think, yes, it would probably be historical, but I would really love to try something different, so a different time period rather than sort of the 20s, 30s, 40s.
And if you were able to travel back in time, what time period would you travel back to?
Oh, I love the Tudor period. So, but then saying that, I love the 1920s. And having just written Rachel's story, and Rachel's story is set sort of late 1920s into the 30s, I think I want to be there. When you read the book, you'll see I want to be there.
It makes me laugh when people say they want to go back to the Victorian times and stuff. I'm like, why? It stunk. They had no medicine. They had limbs cut off with no anaesthetic. No, thank you.
No.
Yeah.
Rachel's a bit of a good time girl, living it up in London high society. So yeah, that's where I want to be.
It was nice then as well, wasn't it? It was proper,
Golden age.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that.
Yeah, definitely. That's where I would love to be. And the dresses and the hairdos and all the immaterial things, but it was just such an amazing era.
Yeah. Looks like the 2020s are not going to copy that in any way.
No, definitely not. If we ever come out of lockdown.
Yeah, if we ever actually get to experience them properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any authors that are heroes to you that you aspire to?
Not really, no. I tend to read quite an array of books. I like to discover something new, because what I find is, if I read too many from the same author, I get a bit bored. Nothing to do with the author, but because it's written in the same style, I don't know. I just like a bit of variety. So I just want to be the best I can be, really.
Have you made friends with many authors?
No, I can't say I have. I'm a bit of a recluse even when lockdown isn't going on. And I'm the sort of person, I find, not that you'd believe it, but I do find speaking and conversation quite difficult normally. So no, and I'm the sort of person that I don't like to message people because I think, oh my God, will they mind? So no, I haven't. So if anybody wants to reach out, they are more than welcome. I promise I will respond.
And have you had much feedback from your readers?
I've had a couple. All of the feedback I've had has been as brilliant, has been as positive as your own. So I am really grateful for that. I don't know if that's just because people have been biased because they've read it and think, oh, I best tell her it's good. But I have had good feedback. So, but I'm taking it as a compliment that a publisher wants to publish it. So it must be I'm sort of working to the view that it must be a little bit okay.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot and it blew me away. So, if that's not good enough for you, then
No, that's when I read your review, I was just like, oh my God, that is probably the best anybody could ever have said. And the fact that you connected with my characters as well is just such a huge compliment.
Yeah, and it's not my usual genre either. So I read crime fiction. So yeah, it just wow. Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you. And
it's actually sold out, hasn't it? The paperback copies today.
Well, yeah, the pre-orders have sold out, and then Amazon's having a bit of a hissy fit at the moment because now it's decided that you can buy it for some crazy price from the US.
Right.
So even though it's in the UK and it's on Amazon UK, they want to sell it you from the US at the moment. So if anybody is interested, the best thing to do is go through Olympia Publishers, go through their website, because say Amazon, I don't know what they're doing at the moment, but they are not being kind. Publication day, and they've really messed it up. So the publishers have been on the phone, they've been firing off emails trying to find out what's going on. So fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll be up and running soon, but otherwise Olympia Publishers is the best place to go for it.
I'll put that link on when I upload the video as well.
Thank you.
No worries. So what do you like to do when you're not writing? Sleep.
Simple answer. Because when I'm not writing, I am usually sleeping because I'm not well. But at the minute, I'm having a bit of a good spell with my health, so it's been really nice to be out in the garden. We've got quite a nice big garden out there, and the kids we've got veg patch and fruit trees and things, so the kids like to be outside, especially my boys. They just want to be outside constantly, so it's really nice at the moment to be outside and just pottering around. So yeah, when I'm not writing, I say it's either sleeping or schoolwork with children at the moment is the other one as well, which is not what I like to be doing, but it's something that I have to be doing. So,
yeah.
But otherwise, yeah. My big thing is I want to be out. I just love being out in the garden.
Yeah. Hopefully, is Wales impacted by our lockdown restrictions, or are yours different?
We are different. We seem to be a lot more severe. So we've been in lockdown now since before Christmas. And it's still total lockdown. This week, the sort of nursery children have started to go back to school, but there's still no sign of any of the children going back to school. Shops are still closed. There's not even any talk of anything. It's like, I know England, they hope to be out of lockdown completely by June, whereas Wales, there's nothing at the moment. It's just endless and ongoing. So it's been quite nice because we're in our own little bubble. So it's just been, whilst weather's nice, go outside and then get on with the writing.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
Ooh. It'd probably be Stephen Fry, because I think it'd be good conversation. David Walliams would have to be the entertainment. Oh, I don't really know about the other two. Philippa Gregory, I enjoy her books, so I think she'd be quite a good one for the literary side. And as for a fourth, I don't know. You've put me on the spot with that one. I don't know. I have to go away and think about that one.
And what superhero power would you choose?
Oh, to stay awake. Definitely to stay awake. For me, anyway. Yeah, stay awake so that I can just function. Otherwise, I definitely have super speedy powers to actually keep on top of 3 children and the house and writing, and yeah. Or a time machine, I'll just go back in time.
Yeah.
Make it easier.
It would be. What's your biggest goal as an author? What's your big dream?
To be honest, I think I've just reached it. Being published, actually having somebody believe in me, because I mean I could have self-published and gone independent, but for somebody to actually turn around and say, yeah, we like your work, that I think is my big goal accomplished. My next goal would definitely be to see Rachel and Ruth out there. Definitely got to get their stories out because they are such colourful characters. So that is my goal, my big goal at the moment as an author. That is what I want to achieve. So fingers crossed.
And then would you like to see your books being made into TV series or films?
It would be nice. Oh gosh, I don't think any author is ever going to say no. But yeah, I think because especially with Violet's story, I think it's a little bit different. There's so many books there out there at the minute about women in the resistance and women on the home front, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that are a female point of view from being a part of the war for Britain. There's no women. Very, very few people actually know that that British women did go on the front lines with the men. It's not something that's not a very well known fact. So I think even from that point of view, it would be quite nice to see it out there on a screen saying, yes, it's a power to women type thing. Not that I'm a feminist or anything like that, but yeah, women were on the front lines and the British Army were proud of them and sent them there. It wasn't all underground and resistance and that sort of thing. They were there and they were alongside our men, and yeah, shout it to the world.
And if you had any thoughts of who would play the 3 women?
Ooh, I don't know. I really don't know. Because if you were to base it just off Wednesday's Child, I think you'd pick a certain type of actress. But then if you read the next two books, so you would then be casting somebody slightly different. So I don't know. It would all depend whether it was just a book based on a film on Wednesday's Child, or the three characters from the three books. Because they say when you read Wednesday's Child after reading the other two, it completely changes the way you read it and the way you think of the characters. It alters them.
Yeah, I mean, I never had any pictures in my head actually of who, because they're so different. I think that I couldn't even think of anyone.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. I couldn't think of anybody modern day that would fit the role, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything that I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, I think you've covered everything. Even put me on the spot a few times.
Yep, I've got to have my fun.
No, all I can say is thank you for actually having me on to speak
You're
to.
very welcome.
Certainly something different for me. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And do you just want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your book?
So I have a Facebook page, which is Laura Thomas Author, which I've been trying to put bits about the book on, and I plan to put a bit more about the characters and the history behind the book. And it's available if you're in anywhere but Britain or UK. It's available on Amazon. Crazily, here at the moment in the UK, it's available from Olympia Publishers. If you just search under my name on the author's bit at the top, and it just pops up. So if you want the book and you're in the UK, that's the best place to go at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.